Hello again, everybody. It's a pleasure for me and for my colleague, Rolf Kreis, from the University of St. Gallen to be here today and talk about some insights we've conducted through the last years when we talk about our next corporate communication platform. I would also like to thank Karl-Heinz for the invitation to speak here today, because I think we heard a lot about social media, digital revolution during yesterday, and of course we had a lot of fantastic insights this morning. And so I thought about what should I tell you again this morning, what should I tell, what should I focus during my presentation. And of course you will hear some things you've already heard yesterday, you perhaps heard this morning, because when we work together with companies in our next platform, then of course we challenge them, what are your key questions? What do you want to know when you think about digital revolution, you think about social media? And of course they come up with interesting research questions, and some of those questions go along with the things you've already heard yesterday and already heard this morning. So what is the next survey concrete? What we are doing in St. Gallen, we are conducting a longitudinal qualitative research, which just means that we are not I would say we are not a classical European university just thinking about new concept and then after years and years we come out with some results. What we try to do, we try to establish a dialogue with companies in a quite early stage of our research process. And that's exactly what we've done during 2008 and 2009 when we confronted companies with some things going on the internet, when we heard about social media, we saw the different platforms spreading up, and we asked the companies, what are you doing with these things? What are your strategies? What are your key questions? And we are very proud to say that at the moment we have a lot of companies in our community discussing research questions with us every day. So that's what we are doing at the moment. We are at the moment just thinking about what are the next things we want to discuss with the companies in our community, and therefore I just want to give you some insights. What are results we have conducted to date, and what are the next steps, what are the next big ideas we want to discuss with companies, and therefore it's always a little bit a call to action for you all in this room, because perhaps you're also interested in collaborating with us in this platform, thinking about research approaches, research results we might create during the future. So where are we when we think about marketing and social media, when we think about a Gartner hype cycle? I've just integrated this slide in my set because I've read during the last month about a study conducted in Germany from McKinsey. And McKinsey, they told us, oh, you have to think about what's going on with social media and marketing, because we have now we are over the peak of inflated expectations, and a lot of companies, they made a bad experiences because they cannot use social media for their sales process and so on. So the key questions of this survey, from my point of view, was now we are just running in the through of disillusionment. And perhaps if the things go on like this, then we don't have to think about social media so intensively like we did during the last years. And that's from our point of view, and we discuss with our communities, that's completely bullshit. It's completely bullshit, because when we talk with companies and we ask them, what are your expectations? What about the meaning of social media within your companies during the next years? Will it increase or will it decrease? What about your initiatives? Then nearly all the companies you've seen on my first slide, they tell us it's just at the beginning. No, it's just at the beginning at the moment. We are not in a through of disillusion. We're just talking about the things like digital life, the Daimler Corporation, for instance. We're talking about enterprise 2.0 when you think about telecom. So we have integrated nothing or only some approaches within our companies, and that's just at the moment something which is going to start. And we are not in a through of disillusionment. We are not in a situation where we have low visibility, because our top executives just begin to realize what is happening out there and just begin to think about the change of their own company, because that's one of the things I've liked yesterday during our presentations and discussions, that a lot of speakers, they talked about organizational change. What does all this, what we discuss here, mean for companies when we talk about organizational change processes, cultural change? And I'm very proud that we had discussions yesterday, because this is just one of the key issues we discussed at the University of St. Gallen throughout the last decades. That we say every time when we have a large technological shift, and of course this might create a major impact for organizations, and therefore we have to think about change processes in this organization. So why is there a perception that we are at the moment perhaps in something like a through of disillusionment? I think that a lot of companies, perhaps most companies in Europe, they penetrate the web within a marketing 1.0 approach. They think about social media, they think about digital, and they treat it like a channel, and they say, wow, that's a good opportunity for me just to broadcast, just to say what we are doing, say how great we are, and what a fantastic company we have. And the problem is a little bit that they ignore some of the essential rules for user engagement, because they have to think, why should a user interact with me as a company? Why should he do this? Because some of our executives in our community has said, for me, Facebook is a little bit more the digital, it's the digital living room of my customer. So he's here in his private atmosphere. It's like his living room. He's not willing to discuss with me as a company. He's only willing to discuss with me as a company if this might create value for him. And we had the discussion yesterday during some presentations. We have the discussion, I think, in a presentation this morning. And of course, this is an interesting question. How might corporations create value for users? Because if they are not able to create value, they will not get longitudinal, they will not get sustainable interaction with the users. On the other hand, and we had it in the presentation before, we have to think about trust, because value is not enough. It's good if you have a good value proposition and you can tell the customer, I give you a reason why it's probably reasonable for you to interact with me. But some interactions also go along with specific risks. That means that the customer probably will give us access to all his data. We had this before, we had this yesterday. And of course, this is also every time an opportunity for misuse, for opportunistic behavior of companies. And a lot of customers, they get negative experiences with this during the last year. So another key question is, how or may we get trustworthy? What are our relationship strategies to increase customer trust? Because these two essentials are so important, to be a trustworthy company and to provide value for the user. And that are the two things we are currently discussing with companies when we think about shaping social media strategies, that we have to think about value, of course, user value. And then we talk with customers and we ask them, we talk with corporations and we ask them, what are your strategies to create user value? And they said, yeah, we give them free products. We give them gifts. They can test something. Okay, and what is the concrete value you get back from this transaction? Then we're not so sure about this. We don't know exactly what is the return on social media. So another discussion is, of course, when you think about value, not only what is the value for the user, on the other hand, we have to discuss what is the value for our corporation. There was a famous article in marketing research by Wargo and Lush in the United States, and they thought about the co-creation of value between users and corporations. And co-creation of value, of course, means that you're not only creating value for the customer, on the other hand, you also have to think about what is the payback for me as a company. So where is the win-win situation? How might we use social media and all those new technologies to create mutual value for me as a company and for my user? And one essential precondition for such interactions is, of course, trust, because we heard before, trust makes interactions more efficient. I would say it's not possible to have a co-creation of value without specific amount of trust. Trust is simply necessary, because if you're not trusting somebody, you're not willing to cooperate, you're not willing to interact, because you always try to hide your data, you try to protect yourself, and this might create such high obligations that it's not possible to co-create value. Where are the sources of trust? We can think about interpersonal trust strategies. That's what a lot of companies try to figure out at the moment, to stimulate word-of-mouth communication about positive user experiences. So therefore the users might tell the other users that it makes sense to interact with the company. We always ask the companies what you are doing to get your own employees into this process. Are your employees talking positive about your own company? And then we are especially in a situation today where a lot of companies report that's a long way for us, because in some companies they are not able to use social media tools in their workplaces, and they are not willing to do it, and in some other companies we think it's not a good idea that they talk about what's happening every day in our company. So as we can see, and I think Brian mentioned it yesterday, we have this strong link between what is happening internally in companies and what's happening outside the company, because you will not be able to roll out a really trustworthy initiative if you have not your own employees at your back and all your employees are supporting such an initiative. So that's interpersonal trust. We have organizational trust, resources, of course the brand. If your company already has a positive brand, that's quite a good thing, because this brand might stimulate interaction. We had it yesterday with the luxury brands, and luxury brands, of course, I think, Scott, you gave the example that the people, the users out there, they love to interact because they like the brand, they love the brand. So I had one example that said, but they had a poor strategy just to use this asset, to get in an interaction with might co-create value for the user and the customer. But if you have a brand, of course, this might give you opportunity to interact. If you have processes, if you have right strategies to interact with your customers. So this might integrate cultural things, processual things. This might integrate your structure. There are a lot of things organizations can do to foster the trust of the user. And of course, we had it this morning, institutional trust. So what is the context? In which context are we operating when we talk about legal perspectives and so on? All those three sources of trust that operate together and create a situation where it's easy for a user to interact with you and to get an interaction, or where users might get back and think, I don't know, I'm not sure, I'm not willing to trust at this moment. So that's what we are trying to discuss with companies when we talk about shaping social media strategies, that they should integrate all those things. And of course, this has to do this has a lot of implications for the business models of companies, because especially when you think about value strategies, how organizations create value for users, and on the other hand, how they create value for themselves, then they have to think about their business model and about opportunities to integrate new media, social media, into communication along to their value chain. And that's something we observe as the next big idea when we are talking with the communities in our with the corporations in our community, that we think corporations need to define a reason why social media users should engage. So what is the reason? Why is it valuable for a user to engage, to interact with me as a company? And this reason, this why, should be derived from the corporate business model, from the value chain. So it's, of course, a different situation if you have a B2B business model like IBM, or you have in a B2C market, when you talk about telecommunication industry, a business model, or if you are a retailer. So what is my specific business model, and what are along my value chain possibilities to use social media for interaction with users in order to foster co-creation of value? Potential areas for the collaboration, I will give you two examples during my presentation: sourcing, service, R&D, testing, of course, marketing also. So there are a lot of areas, and corporations need to enhance the trust of the user in such collaborative workflows. And that's what we are at the moment investigating when we talk with the corporations in our platform. What are the potential possibilities to integrate social media in our core business processes? I would like to give you just two short examples, because examples are always nice, because then we can get a little bit more concrete and figure out what is the business value such companies derived out of their initiatives. And I think if there are any Swiss people here in the room, some Swiss, yeah, they know, of course, Migros, because Migros is the largest retailer in Switzerland, even one of the largest companies in Switzerland. And Migros, they've established their own platform called Wikipedia. It's an online platform hosted by Migros, and what they have done there is just that they put their whole product line on the website. So they just presented their whole product, services, what you can purchase in a Migros store, and they told to the users of Wikipedia, just give us feedback. Talk with us about our products, about our services. what are the things you are thinking about? Should we integrate new products in our store? Are some products not good enough? Should we change something? Should we offer you new services in our stores? And of course, they had also the link to Twitter, YouTube, Facebook fan site, because it was necessary to reach the customer on the platforms they currently are. They are currently, of course, we are not discussing anything on Wikipedia. They discussed on other platforms, but they try to link them to their Wikipedia platform. And then they said, we just want to integrate your ideas into our product development process. And that is, of course, the key objectives of SMICS, just to improve products and services along to the specific needs of the customer. And this is also something to do with cultural change, because some years before, all the category managers there at SMICS, they were not used to think about direct user interaction. And of course, we had a lot of voices there, and they said, oh, come on, all those nerds there in social media, I don't know what they're like. Our market research is quite valid, and they will tell us what we should bring in our stores and what is not good enough anymore. And they had one significant win during the last years, and this was vanilla Coke. Because to date, until 2010, it was not possible to get cherry Coke or vanilla Coke in Switzerland. Because all market researchers, also some colleagues of mine in St. Gallen, they said there is no market in Switzerland. There's simply no market. The Swiss people, they're quite conservative. They only like Coke, perhaps Coke Light. We can talk about Coke Zero, but don't stress them with vanilla Coke or cherry Coke or something like this. That's something for the Americans, not for the Swiss. And of course, SMICS, along their strategy, they said, okay, then we should not bring vanilla Coke to our stores. And one interesting experience of Wikipedia was that a lot of users asked SMICS, why do you not have vanilla Coke in your stores? No? That's something we would like to see when we come to our next SMICS store. And then they made a pilot within one stores, because that's something to do with how should we deal with the users. If the users say we want vanilla Coke in our store, and the category manager says definitely not, then of course it's a question how this internal balance of power might react to what the users are saying on such platforms. And they made a pilot. They said we will not bring it to all the stores because we don't think that this will work out, but we will bring it to some stores, and it was one of the largest success of a new product in Switzerland. Vanilla Coke. Obviously, nobody thought that Swiss people would drink this, but they've purchased it, and now it's in all stores there at SMICS. And obviously, when we talk about social commerce, and yesterday we had a discussion about where should social commerce start, and we have something like a buying cycle when we talk with customers. Then the major fail of a lot of social commerce strategies is that they start at the end. They start with the purchase decision, but before the purchase decision, we had a lot of steps. And this platform, Wikipedia, it starts with demand creation, and I'm quite sure that the interaction of key users in such a social media platform creates a demand for vanilla Coke, where market research was not possible to figure it out before. That's Wikipedia. So there is, of course, a return on user engagement when we talk about integrating social media in such core processes, because, of course, product development, assortment policy, category management, that are core business processes for a retailer like SMICS. And the key question is, how might we get more examples, how it's possible to integrate the possibilities of social media in our key business processes. Another interesting example, Telekom, the German Telecom, they established an online service. I think that's an example we have now in various other industries, where you have a business model, and when it makes sense to deliver services, also via new channels like Facebook, Twitter, or our own internet sites. And of course, this is something Telecom established, and customers are able to post their questions and problems to an online service team. And the key objective, of course, is to deliver customer service on preferred channel, which is not a quite normal thing, because when you think about contact avoidance strategies and so on, then of course the question is, should we deliver a service on all available channels, or should we concentrate our service on a specific channel? And the decision here was that social media is an important channel, and that there are new possibilities, because it makes a great difference if you deliver a service on a social media platform compared to a hotline. Because when you have it in a hotline, nobody is able to see what's happening there. This might also be an advantage for a lot of companies. On the other hand, if you provide good service, excellent service, and you have it on a social media platform, everybody is able to see what's happening there. And this might create special marketing effects, which are quite important. So, of course, also Telecom asks, what are our specific advantages? How should we create user value with our initiative, Telecom Hilft? Is the name of the initiatives, and what might we get back as a company. And what's happening there during the strategy process is that they thought the user value is that, of course, we might reduce customer effort. We might reduce the necessity for customers to search for telephone numbers. So they don't have to call the hotline. If they're online on Facebook or Twitter, they can just post it there. So this might create an impact on customer effort, might reduce customer effort. We might increase solution quality because we are not only able as a company then to react to some complaints, it's also possible for other users to react. And we are able to establish a dialogue. We established, perhaps probably it's possible to establish a community, feedback community, and to give better feedbacks to the problems our customers have. Individuality. One of the strengths of social media might be that it's possible for us to communicate in a more individual way, which is also important because if you communicate in an individual way, this might also have an impact on trust. That's what trust research tells us during the last years, that the way you communicate with the user, of course, also creates a positive impetus on the trust base, which is then already there. Reaction rate, so how fast are we able to react and are we able to solve the problems of our customer? This is, of course, something, if we invest in such issues, then we have the possibility to create a concrete user value with our social media platforms. And that's the why we give to the user, why the user should interact with us on social media platforms. So, I think the technical facilities here are not a friend of mine. But we come to the next step. What is the conversion mechanism? So how might we convert user value to corporate value? And of course, we have to think about the impact such an increase in user value might have on customer satisfaction, because this will impact positive on some interesting corporate value dimension. More satisfied customers are more loyal customers. We might increase cross-sell, upsell preferences. So if we create a higher user value, then of course we might get a higher share of wallet within the specific target group we have here. Word-of-mouth communication. Perhaps word-of-mouth communication in special social media might increase willingness to pay of other customers in this social network. And this is a quite good example, because I think this company has a quite good insight in what they are expecting, what should happen when they engage in such social media initiatives. And therefore, of course, we can also test. Reach is another conversion mechanism. I've already mentioned it before, because when you increase reach of positive service communication, you might also increase willingness to pay of other customers who are able to see that there was a positive service experience. So this is just a model, and it's just a model which gives an idea which causal effects are part of a social media strategy at Telecom. And of course, what we are trying to figure out with companies is, in a qualitative way, just to talk with them. What are your strategies? What are effective strategies in the social media world? And from our point of view, effectiveness has to do something with integration in core business processes. And this is a good example for integration in a core business process, and for the question, what is the user value on the other side, and what are the potential values we might co-create as a company. And then the next step, of course, is to test such models with quantitative data, with data out from the company itself, because this is only an idea at the moment. The question is this really true? Are there any other social media users outside interested in positive service communication or not? How strong are these effects? Which strategy of creating user value is the most important strategy for my users? Where should we concentrate on? These are now the following questions we try to figure out with the companies when we established such model for integration of social media and core business processes. So, of course, it's our idea to go on with our program and This is also an invitation for you here to join the next survey, because we are cooperating at the moment with MicroStrategy. We are cooperating also with Mücke and Sturm, a consultancy company in Germany, in this project, and we try to figure out what are effective strategies for corporations in a social media world. Sounds like a holistic question, but what we are interested in is specific the things I've showed you already. We are interested in possible ways to integrate social media in core business processes, and to develop models which we can later on test in quantitative ways. So, how might firms create user value by integrating social media in the corporate value chain? In general, how might firms enhance the trust of social media users in order to engage? That's, of course, an important question. We have a long tradition at the University of St. Gallen in trust research, and therefore we try to integrate our insights about how trust emerges, what are potential processes of creating trust, and how can we use this also for the social media sphere. And specific, how might firms enhance the trust of Facebook users in order to obtain permission to access user data? Because that's, again, an important question. If you talk especially about Facebook, when you try to use all the data, and we heard it yesterday, that then you can use it for segmentation strategies. You can use it to give them exactly the information they need. There are, I think, multiple ways to use the data. The question is, are they willing to share this data with us? So what are our strategies as a company just to get access to this data? And how might we increase the trust, the trustworthiness of our companies when we think about this specific value co-creation? What kind of competitive advantages is created by effective social media strategies? We have examples at Telecom, we had an example at Migros, we have a lot of other examples in the community, but of course, as I've already mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, we are just at the start. We are just, especially in Europe, when we think about Germany, Austria, and Switzerland, we have some thought leaders, but the main part of a lot of companies just begin how they might integrate this. How they might integrate this in their core business processes, and therefore we might think that we will get some interesting examples with our qualitative research approach, and also some interesting cooperations with companies which made it possible to test this concrete. Yeah, that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for your attention, and of course it's possible to ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much also for being very speedy and very, very precise.